Hello and welcome to TCM Howzat, the Ashes special in the week that England lost the first test against Australia. But we'll get to that in a minute. Joining myself, Simon Reynolds, for this one is a star-studded panel of TCM contributors, journalist, commentator, and the man who only mentions he has a job at Durham twice an hour, Rob Rush. And
only twice an hour. That's lenient.
Only twice an hour. And alongside him is the smallest member of TCM who works for the England over 60s because he likes hanging out with OAPs, Harrison Burridge. Lovely intros to get us started. Coming up, we'll be dissecting that Ashes win, looking ahead to the rest of the series and talking the women's Ashes after day one of the test match at Trent Bridge, as well as choosing our thanks for coming of the week and our stars of the week as the of the week feature returns. But first, we need to talk about the big story of the week. Fortress Edgbaston has fallen once again. After a tantalising test match, Australia are 1-0 up in the Ashes. Harrison, firstly, what a test match. What did you make of it?
It was just a fantastic advert for the game as a neutral kind of overarching point of the game. You couldn't take your eyes off at any point. I think I may have tweeted just a couple of times about how compelling the viewing was. There's a couple of spells and just like something's happening in every ball here. And that's kind of just what summed up the way the two contrasting styles kind of worked with each other in a way to create that piece of theatre. Many have coined it. And yeah, England lost, and there's a few reasons why. And that's obviously leaves a bit of a sour taste, I guess, about the overall test match. But Australia, you can't blame them for being winners. They played how they wanted to and executed it perfectly and produced a fantastic test match in doing so.
So commiserations for England then, Rob. Should we be worried at this point? 1-0 down in an Ashes series. There's 4 tests to go.
No, anyone who overreacts after this first test is forgetting the fact that yes, the declaration is questionable. Like, I think at least, but what people are also forgetting is the fact that we had 3 or 4 batters in that second innings get in and then get themselves out. Root, Stokes, Bairstow, and Brooke all got themselves in and then got themselves out relatively cheaply. If those 4 just add an extra 10 runs individually to their scores, that's 40 extra runs that England have to play with. That's a lead of 320. We're probably sitting here talking about how England are 1-0 up and how Ben Stokes should be praised for that declaration. So, no, there are just the little things that need to be addressed. You know, if Ben Stokes and people cannot miss straight deliveries to get pinned WW, can Joe Root not charge directly down the wicket to Nathan Lyon after looking so comfortable the entirety of that fourth morning? Look, yes, it's disappointing. Of course it is, but if anything, it's vindicated how England play their style of cricket. The fact that you can declare after rocking up nearly 400 runs on the first day, have a disappointing second innings, and still come within 2 wickets of winning that test. Maybe, I mean, the thing for me that's just been funny is how the Australian media are hammering Ollie Robinson for just everything.
We'll get to that later.
I'm going to say, which I'm sure we'll get onto, and I've got strong opinions on that. But overall, no, shouldn't really be overreacting to this. It's kind of, you think about it, Ben Duckett didn't really contribute much with the bat in this test. Jimmy wasn't at his best. You don't think Jimmy's going to be that poor again. Stuart Broad bowling no balls. You hope he sorts that out. So, yeah, just little things to tidy up on, which, it's nothing major. And then with the bat, you just got to hope that players actually, score a few more runs, which any side would want at all time. But, yeah, no need to overreact for me.
No need for overreaction, a bit of optimism there. Let's dive straight into some of the more performances on an individual level. Harrison, bowling-wise, Stuart Broad had a stellar match, taking 3 for 68 in the first innings and 3 for 64 in the second innings. When he was getting that crowd pumping at Edgbaston, there was nothing better. He's on top form, isn't he?
Definitely. It's everything we've come to associate with Stuart Broad, and particularly Stuart Broad in the Ashes and home Ashes at that. He was like kind of like the conductor to the crowd, just revving them up, and then revving them up before he got Marnus Labuschagne first ball. That's a special moment that anyone there that day will remember or watch him. It's one of those, and just that spell on the 4th evening to get rid of both Marnus and Smith. Nearly winning the game would have probably been the key moment looking back if England had one. But for someone who was doubted so much by so many, people were talking about, is it Wood? Is it Broad for this team? England backed Broad and he delivered on all cylinders and was by far the best seamer out of both sides.
You talk about memories there made, and Stuart Broad definitely made a few in this test. But someone, as Rob mentioned, that didn't have a great test and perhaps didn't make many memories from it was Jimmy Anderson. Again, Rob, he looks slightly undercooked for this test. Do you think that's going to be an issue going forward, or is it just a one-off?
No, because I think what perspective is key, and what I remember is he injured his groin for Lancashire after playing more county championship games than was agreed upon. It was like his second. I think he was meant to play only 4, and it was his 6th game that he was playing. And you'd rather have a little bit more match, fitness in the tank than not enough. And then he missed the Ireland test as a precaution. So I think, yes, it's obviously disappointing that Jimmy didn't produce one of his spells, but then we're also forgetting the fact that he could have had Khawaja third ball of the second innings had Johnny Bairstow and Joe Root communicated to each other whose catch it was, So if he gets that wicket after Khawaja hit 140 in the first innings, who knows? He might then get on a roll, and then we could be sitting here talking about something different. So, yeah, disappointing, of course, as I mentioned, as an overall, it's disappointing. But we're going to Lords next. He's got a very good record at Lords. He's on the honours board so many times, you've lost count. He's got a really good average there, if I remember correctly. And I wonder if the pitch might be a little bit more bowling friendly, because I think that Edgbaston pitch, I know Stokes said he wanted hard, fast wickets to help batting. I think both sides would be quite liking a little bit more bowling assistance on that Lords pitch. But yeah, look, Jimmy, the guy's been playing Test cricket for pretty much as long as all of us here on this call have been alive.
Right.
Like the guy, there's no words to describe how good he is, how great of a career he's had. Like you're never going to be able to fully describe it. So look, you just hope that he's just got this one underneath him, and he'll be moving on to Lords. He'll be getting some rest in and recovery. A few days away. And just move yourself on to Lords. And the thing is, there's nothing you can do about it now. You can't turn back time and say I bowled this ball, or I'd shout at Johnny and Joe before that delivery. He's like, he's going to get an edge here. One of you fucking take this. You can't change it. So you just dot it up. He'll be looking at his mistakes. He'll be looking at what he could do better, and he'll be putting it in place for Lords. So again, no need to overreact.
Indeed, let's not overreact. This is England's greatest ever wicket taker. So let's just all calm down.
The guy's got 750 Test wickets for crying out loud.
Exactly. In terms of bowling, another contentious issue, obviously going into this test, Moeen Ali comes out of retirement and he took some good wickets, but was perhaps a little bit expensive, Harrison. What did you make of his performance, and do you think we'll see him going forward? Obviously, the blister injury, and in terms of that sweat spray and whatever, that controversy, because we love a controversy in the Ashes. Do you think we'll see more of Mo going forward in this series, or do you think England will look to someone else?
I think England will have to stick with him, obviously fully dependent on whether his finger heals in time for Lords and whether they think it can get through the workload they will want from him. But you don't bring someone back effectively coming out of retirement to play in a series and play one test and bin him off. It kind of went as you expected, really, for him. You knew he'd go for runs because Australia were going to take down whatever spinner England threw out, and that happened, and took a few wickets, a couple of magical balls, and arguably should have had a couple more if chances were taken, especially on that second day, which you kind of feel that's where the game swung and Australia really got back into the game from a position of where they looked a bit shaky. But there's rumours that Will Jacks is going to be added to the squad for Lords, which I think is a safe bet, at least to have someone around in case Moeen isn't fit. But you'd expect England to stick with him going throughout the series.
Stick with him. I think this man has not played Test cricket or red ball cricket for a very long time. So to come in his first match and be taking Ashes wickets, I think is a pretty good result. Let's turn to batting then. And the standout was Joe Root, again proving why he was one of England's best batsmen, scoring 118 and 46. Rob, what's his secret?
Well, apparently it's going to the IPL, not playing many games, but just being in the nets the entire time, obviously. Again, this is a guy who's only behind Alistair Cook in centuries in Test matches for England. When he's finished, he'll be clear of him probably by a long stretch. I think Cook's record is 32 centuries that he scored. When you think about that for an opener, that's fucking incredible. And Joe Root's already at number 30, notched up in the first innings. The guy's a machine. And it's actually very crazy to think about a year ago when this Stokes-McCullum group took over. He was one of the ones that everyone was really questioning about is he going to fit this? If they're going to be really positive, does this England squad have a place for Joe Root? And I was there day 4. I'm watching him literally very first ball of the day, deciding, you know what, I just quite fancy hitting a reverse scoop shot to Pat Cummins. It's like, all right, Joe, that is Australia's best bowler who can bowl 95 miles an hour. You are aware of this, aren't you? The guy's a machine, and I criticised him for getting the way he got out in the second innings. It was a little bit of he had been playing so well up until that point, and there was no need to come down the pitch to Nathan Lyon at that point. He could have scored a fair few more runs, and then it goes back to the whole thing of if he does stay in, and because he was in very good touch. Australia didn't really look as if they were troubling much, apart from maybe when Josh Hazlewood was bowling at him. So look, yeah, there's little pickety things there, but this is a guy when it's all said and done, will be the greatest Test batter that England have ever produced, and I don't think anyone's going to come very close to that for a long, long time. So, it's just incredible to just to sit back and watch. Like it's one of those ones where I think you'll get even neutral fans going. If you could sit down for a day and watch a player bat, Joe Root is in your top 3 for those. He's just quite simply ridiculous. He's showing all the shots now. This is a guy who's been pigeonholed as he's a traditional red ball player. He's in that old school mold of he'll score at 40, he won't try any audacious shots. And he comes out here, it's like, I can score at 60 and do all these ramp shots. So what are you going to do about it? He's just a magician. Again, with Jimmy, you can't fully describe how good he is because you're never going to be able to do him justice. So all hail Joe Root, long may it continue, and please score a double ton at Lords, please.
Grab your popcorn if Joe Root is in the middle. I think that should be the message that we carry on. Now, before the Test, in the lead up to it, there was a lot of contention about Zach Crawley's place in the side. He came out on the first morning of the Ashes and hit the first ball for 4, which is a stark contrast to what happened in Australia 2 years ago. But he also scored 61. How much confidence is it going to take from that, Harrison? And is this putting an end to all this opening contention and proving perhaps that we should just trust in giving a player a long run to come into form?
I don't think, to start off, I don't think they totally end any talk over his place, because for some people it's going to take a lot more, and for some they'll never be convinced by him. But that first is exactly what England expect of Crawley and what they've invested so much into and why they've done it. Because to do that on the first morning of any series is fantastic, but the first morning of an Ashes series with the extra pressure and against probably the best bowling attack in the world, albeit on a pitch that wasn't doing a lot for them, was superb. I mean, just to go after that first ball, he could have easily nicked off and walked off 0 for 1, and suddenly everyone's going, what's he done that for? But he's nailed it for 4 and he carried that through, and then he got a good one from Boland before lunch to get rid of him. But he'll take a lot of confidence. I mean, he's had a good kind of county season building up to this, few scores, and this will only help him at Lords, where he did struggle in that county championship this year against Middlesex, and he's hoping to be carrying that over and score more runs for England, because a platform like that sets them up perfectly.
Listen, we're just talking about positives here. I don't know why anyone's upset. I know we lost, but look at all these positives. Any worries on a serious note, batting-wise, Rob? You could say some players didn't quite perhaps perform. Ben Stokes maybe looking a little bit shaky in the middle. Who would you say needs to improve for the second Test if England are going to win the Ashes?
Ben Duckett is one, and I get it's it's his first experience of Ashes cricket in England, and he is coming off the back of a decent run in the county championship. So, there's hope there that he can kick on a little bit. I'd still like to see a little bit more from Zach Crawley. I think the thing is, yes, you can probably get a little bit too wound up, and I'm definitely not his biggest fan. But when you get yourself in on that pitch, you should be going on and scoring a century. If we're going to be brutally honest here, it was a good delivery, yes, very good delivery. Give credit to the bowler. He should be going on and getting a century, and was shaky in the second innings. But I think Zach obviously was a better opener over that game, by virtue of the fact he actually passed 50. So Ben Duckett is one. You'd probably say Ben Stokes. And I think he's going to come even more into question with that knee injury that everyone knows about. But some people are yet still not fully understanding the fact that he will not bowl unless it's absolutely necessary. I think people do really need to get that through their heads, that we're not going to see a Ben Stokes 15 over Headingley spell anytime soon, if ever again. His knee will just not let him do it. In terms of his batting, was a very poor dismissal in the first innings. That's not the Ben Stokes that everyone knows and loves with the bat. That was an absolutely rank dismissal. Apart from that, I don't think there's anyone else really that you could. I mean, if you're going to keep Mo in the side, then yeah, you'd point to Mo's record and go, "Come on, mate, we need some more runs from you." This is a guy who's been asked to open, bat 3, and bat everywhere down the order, kind of until number 8. He scored centuries in most of those positions. This is a guy that you'd probably want to go, look, we need you to add a bit more than a couple of 18s or whatever it was in Edgbaston. So I think overall you have to look to your top order. You have to look to Ben Duckett, and you've got to look to Ben Stokes. You've got to look to your more senior players in terms of they've been in the test team for longer. But also, yeah, Moeen Ali probably should be adding a little bit more, as should Zach Crawley.
So we've talked a bit about the ways that some of the players got out in this. Does the Bazball mentality have a flaw here, in that players are going to get out in stupid ways trying to do this aggressive version of Test cricket?
It's been the thing from the start, no? Everyone, if all you have to do is watch cricket for just a short amount of time and have a basic understanding that if you play a more aggressive shot, you're more likely to get out. So it's the most obvious flaw there is, but
I suppose my question would be, is that going to become too much? Is that aggressive mentality going to mean that England will come to a point where they're 77 for 7 or whatever, because everyone that comes out plays a stupid shot? Harrison, where do you stand on this aggressive mentality? Should it continue, or do we just need to pull back a bit? Where do you think?
It should absolutely continue. I mean, we've only gone toe to toe with Australia because of how we've played. If we played like we did in the Roots Silver Deer, we're getting
bring back beaten. Spoons.
We're getting beaten.
Said no one ever. Said no England fan ever.
So it's just batters are going to get out stupidly. That's happened for the past year. A lot of fans are becoming akin to it and getting used to it, and it's part and parcel of how England want to play their cricket. But it's also going to pull off innings like the ones we maybe saw in Pakistan and New Zealand, particularly from Harry Brook and likes like that, where they do just get on the roll and they will score a big 90 or go on and make a big ton, something like that. You go back to Johnny Bairstow last summer, that's a perfect example of that New Zealand run chase at Trent Bridge. Things will go wrong. There will be a bad match here and there. This was maybe a slightly bad one on the batting front, but you can't just go away and abandon a strategy that's got you 11 wins in 14 matches after 1 in 17 before.
I think we had this against
Bazball.
We had this South Africa last summer. We had one test match. The one test match we lost, I think it was the first test match against South Africa. We had this exact thing of we played stupidly.
It was at Edgbaston as well, wasn't it? I think we just banned games at Edgbaston.
No, because the Holly stand is fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It'd be rude to not go back there. But, we had it against South Africa. I think that was the first loss under the Stokes-McCullum leadership. And it was because first innings, we were playing the way we have, and we didn't get runs. And I think the thing, I was listening back to Brendan McCullum speak after the New Zealand series, and he kind of said something along the lines of, we play this way because we're all in on this way. and I like how he's not going to back down. And it's a thing that everyone kind of needs to take from. If you're going to do something, you need to be all in on it. You can't be half in, half out. You can't be half-hearted, because that's when you'll start losing results even more. So, yeah, like I said, we had it against South Africa, and what did we happen? We ended up winning the next 2 tests and winning that series. So I don't understand why people are asking to rein it back. As Harrison alluded to, this is 14 tests, 11 wins. Why are we as England fans going after the second loss? Stoke shouldn't have declared. We shouldn't have done this. We shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have done the other. They're continuing the way that has brought them 11 wins. Why, after one loss, are we going, change this, change that, change the other? No, I don't want to go back to how it was on the route in Silverwood when we were skittled for 170, playing stupid defensive shots outside fifth stump that had no need to be played at. At least I know if the ball's outside fifth stump in this regime, we're gonna go fucking hit it for 4, at least attempt to hit it for 4. No, I don't understand why people are going rein it back in. As Harrison said there, the only reason we've gone toe-to-toe with Australia is because we've fully embraced Bazball and went, we don't care the fact it's an Ashes series. We're still going to fucking play how we want to play cricket. And I applaud them for that. And it's just a case of, look, rough with the smooth. Nothing in life is ever perfect. You're going to have to take rough with the smooth. This is slightly more on the rough side. Still not that rough in total. So just accept it. Shit happens. Trust the team that will make the right changes and move on.
Oh, good. We've got him riled up already. Fantastic. Leads into the next debate perfectly, because we're going to talk about Johnny Bairstow. Now, I would argue if it's been a good match for a keeper, you don't talk about a keeper. Unfortunately, here we are, a couple of days post-test match, talking about a keeper. Johnny Bairstow had, I think it's fair to say, a rough time behind the stumps. Harrison, simple question for you. Should we be picking Ben Foakes instead of him?
On a purely keeping, yes. But at the same time, it goes back to how do you fit Foakes into the side? Because Bairstow has to be in the team. He showed it with that, was it a runnable 78 for your first test innings back after a long injury layoff? That's exceptional. But it's a tough one because we know Bairstow has potential to be a decent keeper on his day, but he has struggles against spin. That came up and then kind of just led into other areas of his game. England will, probably with Mo and Alex, they will stick with him. He will get all 5 tests with the gloves, most likely. You do feel for Ben Foakes because as a gloveman, he's superb. And to be fair to him, he's done quite well with the bat as well with his England side in recent times. But it's professional sport, it's a competition for places. And unfortunately, one of them can fit with the way they've got their team structured.
Should we not be picking our best keeper every time, Rob?
It's those four words, Kagi. 4. Pick your best keeper.
That just to add context there, that's a dig towards a TikTok that I made earlier. Go and check that out if you want to rinse me.
Like Harrison said, it's difficult because I don't think anyone could have predicted Harry Brook averaging 90 odd after his first 4 or 5 test matches. I don't think anyone could have predicted that. And so if you're looking at it from that sense, you go, well, Harry Brook's form has kind of gone, yeah, sorry, Ben, you're kind of the odd one out here. But look, I think what people are also forgetting is the fact that Johnny didn't have the gloves last summer and was a ridiculous slip catcher at third slip. He was really good, really solid. He was good in the outfield when we put him out there for short ball tactics. So it is difficult to fit him in, and we'll probably get onto this a little bit later. There is a way you can get him back in, but you're gonna have to shuffle the balance of your side around. And England have, obviously this regime has gone, no, we've got a way here, we're going to stick with it. So look, Foakes isn't coming back for the second test because they announced the squad for the first 2 tests. He's not in it. He's probably not going to get added to the squad for the entire series unless Johnny re-injures himself. I think it's safe to say Johnny did not look 100% fit either. Some of the wicket-keeping, gurus have been pointing out little things. I mean, yes, it's social media, so take it with a pinch of salt. But they've been pointing out the little technical things that he hasn't been doing. He's only just come back. He only kept about 4 games for Yorkshire before getting added back to that test squad. So yeah, it's incredibly harsh on Ben Folkes. And ideally for me, yes, he would be in this side still and he would still be keeping. But I can see why England have gone with Bairstow, and it's not going to be changing anytime soon unless Johnny or Harry Brook re-injures themselves. So yeah, it's just one of those things, unfortunately.
We'll get to those changes for the second test as we progress with this discussion. Now, I wish we couldn't talk about the Aussies, but unfortunately it's the Ashes, so we actually have to. How impressive were they, Harrison, particularly Pat Cummings and his masterclass in captaincy, leading from the front at the end of day 5, getting them across the line? I'm beginning to think it's impossible to hate him.
It is difficult because he's just so good at everything he does. I mean, to come in that situation, the final day of, well, basically the final hour of a test match, you've got 2 wickets left, you still need 50 runs. And to go and, you ended up 40-something not out, and you just took the attack to route to really kick on when many thought they'd battle for a draw. I mean, it's a joke of a cricketer. The ball to dismiss Ollie Pope. I mean, wow. Many just seems a seam bowler, but to get that amount of swing and cast Ollie Pope, fantastic. He got the big wicket, Stokes, second innings too. I mean, he can just do it all. His captaincy at times, I was a bit like what's he doing? Especially that first day when he just put everyone out on the boundary bases so quickly. I was like, this is quite weird. And maybe they kind of saw the way Bazball would work and England would give him wickets and it'd work that way. But as a cricketer, I mean, he's an absolute joke of a player.
He's an absolute joke of a player and he's annoyingly good. So can someone somewhere in the world just sort that out, please? I can't have an Aussie being this good. Another Aussie who was brilliant was Usman Khawaja. Conundrum for you. How the hell do you get him out, Rob?
First of all, you take the catches. That's one way to get him out, as is any cricketer. Excuse me. I'm not entirely sure, you know. I mean, I give this guy a hell of a lot of credit. He's probably my favourite Aussie in the side because he's not had the most stable run in the team. I remember 2019 wasn't his best series over here. He's batted 3, he's batted 4, he's been in the middle order, he's now opening, especially with David Warner, you know, winding down the time on his test career and seemingly not getting out of the rut that is having to face Stuart Broad and not get out. You know, and especially in this test match, it's more impressive the fact because Labuschagne and Smith offered no support to him whatsoever. So I have a huge lot of respect for him. I think the only really way you can maybe try to target him is to go short, but he is a good player of the short ball. So it's a case of you've got to keep hammering away on a line and a length. You got to try and hope he edges one. And then if not, you're going to have to get funky with your field and try and, you know, as we saw when he eventually got bowled charging down Ollie Robinson for 140 odd in the first innings. You're just going to have to hope that he makes a mistake and maybe you can build some pressure up, keep him from getting singles and stop his boundaries. And then you can start going, okay, now we can, you know, target the stumps a little bit more and try and force an error out of him. But I've said this a few times. I fear he is going to be Steve Smith in 2019. I fear this is going to be the series where we can't get him out. He will average above 50 and he'll just be the glue that holds Australia together. Everyone else will go through ups, downs, peaks, troughs. But Khawaja is going to be that one that you're going to really struggle to get the wicket of. And ultimately, if your opener is carrying your bat or at least making big runs in all 5 of your test matches, you're going to be putting yourself in a good position to either get a draw or try and put a win on the board. So, yeah, you got to take your catches, maybe hammer away in line length, maybe short stuff. And if you can't do any of that, you got to bore him into a mistake, which he didn't look like doing.
Sorry, go on, Harry.
This is a man who had 1 half century in his previous 14 innings in England before this test. He hadn't played Test cricket since that Headingley test in 2019 until he got recalled in that Sydney test, the last Ashes where he made those 200s. He's averaged north of 60 since. like Pat Cummins, he's a joke right now. He's a
What is
superb
it?
player.
What are
And
they
the
feeding
fact
these
is,
Aussies cricketers? What are they
those
giving them?
those two tests, Harrison, he was batting at 6 then, no? Because Travis Head had caught COVID or something, so he was batting middle order. But wasn't even opening, and then they just go,
Just a
"Oh,
joke.
it's like,
just
oh
a
well,
joke.
we can't drop you anymore, but there is a spot opener because Will Bukowski keeps getting concussed, and Joe Burns and everyone else that they've been rolling out just haven't been working. So
The thing is I'm meant to hate these Aussies. Like, I'm meant to hate them. But when Usman Khawaja comes out and does a press conference with his child on his lap, what the fuck am I supposed to do? It was so cute.
And the child behaves perfectly.
Yes, I mean, it's a joke how nice these Aussie cricketers are seeming to be and how well they're doing on the flaming field. Honestly, can someone please get some sandpaper from somewhere? Let me calm down. Keeping on Aussies who have done really, really well, I'm going to go for a bit of a shout here. And when we saw the difficulty of spin bowling for England in this test match and the things about spin, Nathan Lyon, I mean, underrated perhaps, Harrison? He seems quite consistent.
He did what we all expected before the series. He'd bowl a ton of overs and pick up regular wickets, albeit, especially that first day, there were some freakish ones. That Brook one was kind of one of a kind for him, but he was a constant threat. And albeit England took him around the park, I think he went at over 5 first time round and probably something similar second time round as well. But he was able to generate bounce and turn off the wicket throughout the time. And I mean, it's no surprise, like Cummins and Khawaja, he has such an impressive test record that he does, because he's done it all over the world, every continent, every country, you name it. He would have taken wickets and taken bucket loads of them. And then he was there with a bat at the end. Just to highlight, he can do it with the bat as well. He plays a massive knock at the end to support his captain. I mean, he's another one, albeit he's a bit more dislikable than Cummins and Khawaja because of past comments, especially towards England players. But he's another one who's just a superb cricketer that is very annoying to play against.
They're all so annoying, this Aussie side. But it's making for a great series. Now, as Michael Atherton said on day 4, it wouldn't be an Ashes series without a sledging story. So let's come on to that. Now, this concerns Usman Khawaja and Ollie Robinson. It got a bit heated in the middle. Ollie Robinson got him out and said, and I quote, "Fuck off, you fucking prick." Rob, too far? Bit of sportsmanship? How do you see it?
I've said this multiple times. Ollie Robinson has said a lot worse.
Right, but that's not exactly a good bar to set.
No, but
the bar's on the floor.
If the Aussies are going off like, you know, oh, Robbo took it too far, mate. You took it too far. It's like, first of all, this is a guy who took, what was it, 4 on the test debut against New Zealand, and during his test debut, people dragged up his old tweets to find out what had been said. So Robbo himself has said a lot worse. And are we forgetting that this is the fucking Ashes? This is a series that Jimmy Anderson has been told to prepare for a broken fucking arm, and Mitchell Johnson and Stuart Broad have said they fucked each other's sisters. Like, off you fucking prick, or whatever he said, is very, 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 very light-hearted compared to it. If you're going to go Ollie Robinson, Usman Khawaja, probably the other thing to look at is day 5 when Jimmy has to walk him away from a separate sledging thing that Ollie Robinson said. But I hate this notion that the Aussie media have put out that Robbo took it too far. It's like, this is the most hotly contested series in world cricket. Why would there not be some chat out in the middle? And you got to think, this is Robinson who took a little bit of, you know, Khawaja had targeted him a little bit. I think he might have scored a fair few of his runs off him in that first innings. Couldn't get him out. He's been toiling away for a while. Finally gets him out. Like, I wonder how many times, like, before Stump Mike had been brought in, had other bowlers said that sort of stuff. And before, like, cameras were watching the bowlers very closely after taking the wicket.
They all seem
how much more would we have picked up on?
Interestingly enough, all the former cricketers, right, tend to claim, oh, there was none of that. There was none of that.
Oh yeah, of course not.
Bollocks. Anyway.
Exactly. So no,
Anyway.
I do not have an issue with it whatsoever. It doesn't cross any lines if you're going to go into what is unacceptable, which is obviously like pure abuse. Doesn't cross that line.
Just banter. It's just banter. Not abuse.
It doesn't cross. It doesn't come anywhere near to that line. Like, you know, he said it for me perfectly in his post-match press conference afterwards. This is the Ashes. If you can't handle this, what can you handle? This is the biggest like sporting event in cricket. This is the biggest cricketing event that goes around. So, no, I mean, if he called him something else, and maybe, you know, obviously it's well known that Khawaja doesn't drink. If he'd have said something a little bit, you know, if we're getting into those sorts of territory, then of course it's wrong and needs to be dealt with. But fuck off, you fucking prick! After Khawaja's just bashed 140, what the fuck are we going on about here? If people are going to get upset about that, then we should literally just go every time someone swears on the cricket pitch, you get fined. It's like, no, this is part of the game. This is part of the game we play.
I suppose the point would be that, you know, there might be kids looking up to this person. What sort of an example does it set to them? And perhaps, yes, you're saying it's tame language, but would Jimmy Anderson have done the same? Would Stuart Broad have done the same? Ollie Robinson?
If you are going to say Stuart Broad would not have done the same, you are straight up lying.
No, I'm just
Stuart Broad 100% would have.
I'm simply suggesting, and I think hopefully Harrison can see the point that I'm getting at here, which is perhaps, maybe, you know, cricket is seen as more of a, you know, civil, nice sport. And so for that sort of language on the field, perhaps some people were unhappy with it, and justifiably so.
You are talking sense on that viewpoint. I think that's what's rubbed a lot of people up kind of the wrong way. It's a guy who scored 140, and I wouldn't go to the extent Robson does if I got someone out who scored big runs, but you'd be happy and relieved at the same time you finally dislodged that thorn in your side in many ways. But it has crossed the line. It probably isn't needed, the send off to it, but by all accounts, because Robinson's now got a article in the Wisdom after every test hunt, they have kind of just the two of them are met and they will find each other.
Way to cash in on swearing. If I knew I could swear at someone and get a bloody wisdom writing teacher, I would have done it ages ago.
Well, no, Kagi, because one of the requisites is that you can spell properly, so you.
Oh wow, that was just uncalled for, really, wasn't it?
But just one final thing I want to touch on it, away from kind of Robinson, but the Australian media meltdown has been hilarious. And Fox Cricket coined Ollie Robinson the #1 villain today. And in true Stuart Broad style, he's replied saying he's disappointed he's lost that tag already. I think that kind of sums up where we are with this series.
I love the fact that the Australian media are so rattled by Ollie Robinson that they're calling him the #1 villain, which is just not true, really. I'm half expecting. I reckon if you walk through the streets of Australia now, there's a most wanted picture. We've got a picture of Ollie Robinson on it. Reward wanted. Like, come on, guys, it's the Ashes.
I tweeted this morning that if he bowls off spin, I think that might send the media over the edge.
I hope he does it for shits and giggles, to be honest.
The thing is, I can't remember which Australian it was, but they said the fact that Ollie's he's a bit of a nothing bowler. Kind of like he bowls.
Hayden, wasn't it? Matthew Hayden.
Yeah, and it kind of go. This is a guy that has got, what is it, north of 30 Test wickets at just over 20, like in his first 12 months of playing international cricket. Like, I don't. This guy is also, I mean, maybe he's pointing to the fact that Robinson has struggled with his fitness, and you know, the last Ashes was the prime example of that. He couldn't bowl with his pace; he had to go to off spin. But when Robinson has been fit and playing and been at his best, there hasn't been many better in Test cricket than him. So I don't. Again, it just goes to your point, Harrison. Of the Aussie media have completely, they've made him their poster boy. Of we're going to pin everything on him. So would not surprise me if I think he copped a little bit out in the middle as well when he went there first innings. And there's the good old fast bowlers union. Pat Cummins sent a fair few bouncers his way in that second innings. So no doubt Robinson will be politely reminded of that before he bowls to Pat Cummins next, and he'll get them all dished back out to him.
It's all shaping up so nicely. It's going to get so much worse, and we're only one test in. I can't wait for the firestorm to start. Right, let's look ahead then to the next test. Obviously, Lords, better for England. You know, they might have Jimmy Anderson, as we mentioned, better record at Lords. Lords, England, Australia, occasion. Harrison, any changes for you going into the second test? And do you think England can still win the Ashes?
England can definitely still win the Ashes. I won't let go of that belief until it is impossible. But in terms of the team, I think Mark Wood has to play. Regardless of what pitch is, you'd expect a similar pitch, but maybe, as you said, probably a little bit more in it for the bowlers, with it being Lords as well. But Mark Wood has to come in. You look at the seamers. Do you maybe say to Robinson, take a break for this one? Because you can't drop Broad now. And you can't drop Anderson at Lords. There's a little headache being created
Maybe
there.
just give him a rest. He can think about his language and come back.
Yeah, but then I'd love to see... actually, maybe should just drop Robinson just for the meltdown in Australia. But Mark Woods is definite, but it all kind of hinges on what happens with Mo and Ali. If he's fit, he'll play. But if he's not, do you then bring in someone like Chris Wokes, maybe? Or do you bring Mark Wood in for Moeen? Or do you then bring Will Jackson for him? That's where I think the dilemmas will come. But if Moeen's fit, he plays for me. And you go Wood for Robinson. But if he's not fit, from what they said, I'll go Jackson for Owen and still Wood for Robinson.
Rob, I've been reliably informed for this podcast recording that your changes for the second test made Harrison audibly laugh. Can you elaborate?
Well, first of all, are you going to restrict me to the squad that England have picked for the first two for changes?
I'm going to restrict you to no Durham players.
No.
Oh, he's stuffed then.
Yeah.
Go on. Tell me who you would bring in. Mastermind.
Right, if we're going realistic, I would fast track Will Jackson. I'd do a straight swap, and I would swap Mark Wood in for Ollie Robinson. You're going to need that pace. Wood is also relatively fresh. Hasn't played an awful lot of cricket, which you can point to as a disadvantage. But the obvious advantage is he's fit, he's fresh. You can make him charge in. And the thing I was toying with in my mind is if we're going to be slightly unrealistic, or in England's sense unrealistic because he's not in the squad, obviously bringing Ben Folkes back. And because how I alluded with Ben Stokes' knee not being great, and if he's going to keep playing this aggressive way, you might as well push him to open because he's not the all-rounder that he once was. And then I would caveat that by trying to fit Chris Wokes in. But as I've alluded to, with now bringing Will Jackson, you can't really do that. So, yeah, there's no... if the Jacks rumours are to be believed, I'm going Will Jacks over Moeen. Just the fact he's actually played red ball in the last 2 years.
Just to say, my jaw audibly dropped to the floor when you said Ben Stokes to open.
This is the thing is, if he's not going to be bowling how he was, and if he's going to keep on playing the way that he is, you might as well just fully lean into it and just go, yes, there's not a lot of point in trying to dangle the carrot to Australia going, Ben Stokes is batting 6. He could be bowling a few overs if he's only going to bowl, 12, 13 over the course of the series, of course of the first test. Now, maybe he'll increase his workload. We don't know. But everyone who's followed England for the last 2 years has known Ben Stokes' knee is, for lack of a better term, fucked. And I think the lack of bowling at Edgbaston should show to everyone just how bad it really is. So England have to find ways around that. And I feel, look, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then you drop him back to 6 and you keep I don't know. But the thing for me is if Ben Stokes is not going to be the all-rounder that you need him to be, then why should we be leaning into him batting 6? If he's going to be this aggressive, make use of him opening.
I was just about to move on from the men's Ashes, but then a nice little column popped up on my
Oh, no.
Twitter page. Jimmy
Oh, there we
Anderson
go.
has written in the Telegraph, and the headline is Edgbaston pitch was kryptonite to me. I'm done in the Ashes if pitches are like that. And the subheading to that is Ollie Robinson did nothing wrong in his flare up with Usman Khawaja, and he should keep getting fired up like that. Now, that is a lot of talk to dissect from England's greatest ever bowler. Harrison, your instant reaction to that?
Well, I mean, the first bit you read out is alarming because Stokes and McCullum have asked for these pitches. So in a way, he's kind of outing what the leadership team have asked for and saying, I'm not doing this if that's what they want to do.
He's
Obviously,
also, just to add to that, he says there was not much swing, no reverse swing, no seam movement, no bounce, and no pace. So that's a scathing review of that pitch, I think it's fair to say.
I think it's fair to say about the pitch, it probably was a lot slower than England wanted. So the fact that on day one balls weren't carrying through as you'd expect, that kind of set alarm bells ringing, and kind of by day 4 and 5, you had to go to genius tactics at times to prize out batters, even the lower order. But for Jimmy to come out and say that, it's not surprising. But for someone to kind of come out and out this management in this way when it seems all fine and everyone is buying into it is alarming and maybe a little bit worrying, and probably does lean to they probably will be a little bit more in the pitch, definitely at Lords, purely with the way we know Lords. And even at the Ireland test, there wasn't a lot in that pitch as well for bowlers. But yeah, it's Ashes, isn't it? There's got to be drama.
Ashes in it. It's a nice way to end our discussion about the men's Ashes, and I think it's quite interesting. Let's turn then to the other big thing from one Ashes to another. The women's Ashes got underway at Trent Bridge today with their test match. We've not seen much, obviously. One day, Australia finished 328 for 7 after winning the toss and opting to have a bat first. Harrison, from what you've seen today, is it promising? Is the urn going to be ours? It's not the urn, is it?
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but for England to pull it back from the situation they were in, albeit the rain break did help and stop the flow of the Aussie batters, they're in a very good position in this test. They got them, I think, 328 for 7, and they were definitely at least 180 for 2, maybe even more at one stage. Sophie Ecclestone. We've talked about Pat Cummins, Usman Khawaja. Sophie Ecclestone is the star of the women's game. That spell today was superb. I think there was probably about at least 25 overs unbroken at one point after lunch and through tea and into the evening session. But she just kept coming up with magic balls to prize out the wickets. Alyssa Healy gone second ball. Yes, she's got a poor test record, got a pair in the last test these two played. But to get rid of someone so key like that was pivotal in the test. England were well in it then. A bit of a partnership blunted them, but I mean, getting Perry out for 99, long final on debut, she was superb, bowling like mid-70s, which in the women's game isn't as common as you'd expect. That really troubled the Australian batsmen. Nearly had Perry first ball. It wasn't for her inside edge. But as first days of the test go, England in a good position. They've started well. Fingers crossed it stays that way.
Fingers crossed indeed. Sophie Ecclestone, someone I want to spend a lot of time talking about because she was exceptional today. And every time we've seen her play red ball cricket, she's been exceptional. She takes it up to the next level. I'd go so far to say she's better than most England men's spinners at this point, right? Rob, how impressed have you been by Sophie Ecclestone?
Hugely impressed. I mean, I haven't been able to catch much of it today. I've caught little drips and drabs. But kind of as Harrison alluded to there, that 25 over spell was sort of things you might see in a county game when it's a dead rubber, not in the first day of a test match in which it's probably the best side to ever play the game in the women's version of Test cricket. You know, is in town and it's the start of a series. You know, there's all, as you alluded to there, the pressure, the momentum, and also the fact we spoke about it last episode. She's kind of the only real spinner we have in the squad. There's not a lot of options behind her. So a lot's resting on her shoulders. And she really stepped up to the plate. As Harrison said, picked up key wickets at very crucial times, involved some very, very good deliveries. So, you know, it's been really impressive to watch, and you just have to hope that she can keep doing it and keep keep performing and just hope that she carries on in good health, because it's a tall order to try and beat this Australian side anyway. If she was to go down injured and not be able to have a big part to play, then the task pretty much becomes impossible. So, look, it's highly impressive. I'm very taken aback by how well she's played, and long may it continue.
And just to say, she also had the lowest economy rate of any bowler today. She bowled 31 overs in total with 6 maidens. So she's been absolutely exceptional. We talked about Filer earlier on debut. Fantastic for her, picking up the big wicket of Perry on 99. Harrison, just talk us through that moment, because that must be... I mean, you must pinch yourself if you're Filer at that moment, because you're on debut and that happens.
I mean, it's everything she would have dreamed of, to dismiss Aussie's star batter in that way, and especially with her being on 99 makes it extra sweet. I mean, she nearly had just the ball before Perry kind of top edged for 4 just over gully, but then next ball got caught at gully trying to drive on, which seemed a bit ambitious when you're on 99 and kind of the opposite to what you'd expect. But Filer matched all the expectations you'd expect today. Last year it was Izzy Wong. She was the big story in the Test arena. This time it's another quick bowler in Lauren Filer. And I mean, she's lit up the stage. She's taken 2 big wickets on the day and bowled a fair number of overs and became a strike bowler for England today. Like, Heather Knight didn't want to take her off at some points because she was generating chances, generating wickets. And, well, if this is just the start of her international career and what it can hold, then she's going to have a fantastic few years ahead of her.
And I think today has just been an advert for more women's Test match cricket. Rob, how good is it to see it at Trent Bridge this year? A proper, Test match ground that the men have played at. I mean, big crowds are expected. In terms of the spectacle, how big is it for the women's game?
It's absolutely huge. I think it's well documented that the ticket sales this year have absolutely smashed what's been kind of the norm in the previous years. So it shows that the money being poured into the women's side of the games is working, and it's also... I'm not going to say what I was going to say there. I was going to mention how the 100 had been, very good at.
Come on, let's save that for later in the summer. Let's have the Ashes first. No mention of that, please.
But just like the growth of the game over the last 3 years on the women's side has been absolutely exponential. I'm not even sure the most optimistic of people could have predicted something as huge as this. I think this is the first 5-day women Test match since like the 1980s or something like that. And as you said, it just proves there should be more of this stuff. There should be more 5-day Test matches. There needs to be, this is only just the start really of where women's cricket can really go. So, it's great to see it producing well in our game. Obviously, Australia have got a phenomenal women's side. New Zealand are taking their steps to producing a really high quality side as well. Hopefully, more and more countries around the world can do the same, and then we can get to having a women's equivalent to what the men's arena is kind of like at the minute, where you've got 10 to 12 really high quality Test nations. If we can get that on the women's side of the game, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And it's my main thing is getting the next generation involved. There'll be thousands of kids, I'm pretty sure, who will be making up most of the ticket sales because their parents have bought them tickets to go watch the games. Those young girls in the crowd watching Danny Wyatt, Kate Cross, Lauren Flyer, Sophie Ecclestone, watching the women's side go out there today and perform like they did, and over the next 4 days, and be going, I want to take up cricket. I want to do this. I want to be like her, and that's what it needs to be about.
And Harrison then looking forward in this Test match, but also in the series because it's a multi-format series. We've got the white ball stuff coming up. Where do you think England may struggle in this Ashes series? Is it going to be the batting, or do you think, given how they've started today, they're going to go from strength to strength?
As I kind of alluded to already, it's a very positive start. They would have probably taken this at the start of the day after losing the toss, and especially even more when McGrath and Perry were batting for Australia in 2 down, making it look rather easy. If you're talking about struggles, the batting at times is probably going to hinge on how Heather Knight and Nat Sciver-Brunt do. Sciver-Brunt herself has been superb the past year. She had the heartbreak in the World Cup of making centuries in both games against Australia, but both times ended up on the losing side. Knight, a century in the last Ashes test over in Australia, and has been like that in the test arena for many years. She's going to be key because England are probably going to be in this test alone looking at least 350, 370 as their first in the score to hunt down. Heather Knight will be the key wicket the Australians will want. She's up at, I believe she'll be up at 3, which she's kind of normally been at 4 in past times. But you got the batting around as well. I mean, Emma Lamb, Tammy Beaumont, Sophia Dunkley, Danny Wyatt, Emmy Jones. There's names there, but England will always be underdogs against Australia because of what this Australian team have done. But they have the capability to make that step this year, this time round, and claim back those Ashes after an awfully long period without them.
So much optimism, and I am here for it. Also, just shout out to Mitchell Stark. Hope he's had a great day watching Sophie Ecclestone tear it up. Let's move on to our final part of the show today, and it is the of the week. So it's the part of the show where we're going to choose our star of the week and then our thanks for coming of the week. Harrison, I'll come to you first. Who is going to be your star of the week and who will be your thanks for coming of the week?
Star of the week, Usman Khawaja. We spoke about him enough, but that was a superb performance of him and deserving man of the match for Australia. Thanks for coming. Well, I mean, this is easy. The man, Stuart Broad, has talked for several months. He's got this new delivery for the Australians. He's talked about it so much, and Marnus Labuschagne fell to it twice in a couple of days. So Marnus Labuschagne is thanks for coming of the week.
And Rob, any changes for you on that? Who are you going to go for?
I'm going to change the thanks for coming, so I'll go with that first. I'm going to go Marnus's better half, Steve Smith. 11 in the first innings, or 16, I think it was, and Ben Stokes removed him by just bowling straight at the stumps. Who knew? Who knew getting Steve Smith out was that simple, just to bowl at the stumps and just misses it? Who knew it was that simple? So I'd go Steve Smith, thanks for coming. And yeah, you can't look past Khawaja as star of the week. A little if we're going to go on the domestic side of things, I'll go stars of the week. I'd go Surrey because that really pained me to say. Sorry.
Can we pause that?
Yeah.
Middlesex are doing
64-37. Yeah.
Ryan Higgins is 31 off 9.
That looks like a fantastic game. We're going to have to delve into that in the next episode if Middlesex win that, because I was convinced when Will Jacks hit 5 sixes in a row that was done and dusted and dead. However, apparently not. I love it.
I'd go Surrey because they're knocking up multiple 200+ scores in T20s, which is ridiculous. And I think that batting order is very interchangeable. So yeah, I can't think of a thanks for coming domestically apart from Gloucestershire, who are struggling in the blast. They
just beat Hampshire, Rob. Please.
They're struggling all round though. And I'm saying that while Ben isn't here, so I can't get abused.
Right. For me then, star of the week, I'm gonna give it to Stuart Broad. There's nothing better than watching that man pummel in against the Aussies, and he performed on a fantastic level this week. And as for my thanks for coming of the week, I'm actually going to go for Mr. Ricky Pointing, because Ricky, I've got some advice for you. You retired ages ago. Please, please, please stop commenting on the Ollie Robinson situation. I know you're an avid watcher of this. I know that you may care a lot about what I think, but honestly, mate, just stay out of it. It's not good for your health, right? Just leave us be, right? Let us enjoy the Ashes. No need to add fuel to the fire. And speechless are Rob and Harrison at the end of this week's Howzat. I've finally done it. Well done. My thanks to Harrison and Rob for joining me. As always, please like and subscribe if you did enjoy this week's pod. It's been very fun, I must say. I love talking about the Ashes. We're going to hopefully be back next week discussing more of that women's test match and, of course, the second Ashes test, as well as some domestic stories from around the country. So please do like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.
The personal message to Pontin.